morning, and welcome to Story Hour. I'm tonight's host, Laura Blackwell. My co-host, the marvelous Daniel Marcus, started Story Hour over 5 years ago in the throes of the pandemic. And as we've moved through other throes of other things throughout these 5 years, we've been convening here every Wednesday to just enjoy some stories around this virtual campfire. And now we are in Spooky Month, the best time of the year. So I am here with two writers who know how to do spooky. I'd like you to welcome back Rachel Unger, a longtime friend of Story Hour, and our new friend, also not always spooky, but tonight spooky, Lauren Parker. If you're here on Zoom, feel free to join in on the text chat off to the side. If you're here on YouTube, right wherever you want, and just enjoy not having to have any social pressures, because no one else is doing that. So here we are. Let's get spooky. Our first reader tonight is Rachel Unger. Rachel Unger thinks that now is an excellent time for us all to be kind to each other. Yes, really. Oh, and tell your cat she said hi. Her fiction is published or forthcoming in Pseudopod, On Spec, and The Quiet Ones 2025 Annual. That sounds intriguing. You can find links to her work at www.rachelunger.com and her occasional thoughts about writing at Rachel Unger on bsky.social. Oh, they're such horrible, horrible long handles on Blue Sky, aren't they? Rachel, welcome back. It's great to have you.
Thank you. I'm glad to be back.
So,
I have a content warning. There will be profanity. Not much, but some. So,
Vanity? Okay,
all
bring
right.
it.
This was originally published in Occam's Razor, issue number 39. This is Distortion. I think something's nesting in the attic, Ma, Nora said into her cell as she stared up at the house. A broken wooden slat sagged against the upper window frame as though weeping into it. Gaping emptiness lay beyond, instead of glass. The damp breeze rustled the trash bag Nora held, echoing the fluttering she'd heard in the ceiling before she came outside. Her mother's voice crackled into her ear. Focus for once, Nora. That china was promised to me. Why haven't you found it? I'm still looking, Ma. Grant died with a lot of junk. Nora hefted the bag, turning toward the bin at the side of the house. She'd deal with whatever was up in the attic later, once she got the attic stair door unstuck. As she lifted the metal lid, a curtain twitched in the kitchen window next door. Oh no. Please, not another interaction with Frank Bennett. That was all she needed right now. What? You should bring me things to sort through before getting rid of anything. I can tell rotting leftovers from a gold watch. Are you sure she still had china? All I can find are the Corelle dishes with the leaves from when I was little. Well, that and 3 25-pound bags of table salt. No wonder Gran had gone cardiac. Her mother sniffed. She probably thought you'd break it. It's bone china. It was passed down to your grandmother from her mother. I think she said it was Tiffany. Who knows how much it's worth? I've never seen it. It must be in the house. You need to look harder. Nora counted dents in the side of the bin before responding. Maybe you could come dig through? I can't, her mother said, evading the idea. I'm busy. I have a full-time job, Ma. But you work from home. It's different. Grief and rage swirled up in Nora's throat, leaving no room for air. If you want it so badly, you're more than welcome to help, she snapped. Against the rising tide of her mother's response, she said, I'll talk with you later, Ma, and hung up. You should show more respect for your parents. Mr. Bennet commented from behind her, and Nora nearly leapt out of her skin. How had he moved so fast? He leaned on a rake handle at the edge of his driveway, rheumy eyes boring into hers. It wouldn't kill you to be polite. They raised you, fed you, sent you to school. Nora inhaled, paused, and said, "Thank you, Mr. Bennet. I appreciate the advice. Excuse me." She went inside and shut the door. Sagging against the living room wall, she pressed the heels of her hands to her burning eyes. Damn it, Gran. Where did you put the stupid china? No answer came from the still air. No voice, no friendly ghost. Nora had only her grief for company and a handful of dark feathers that she must have missed when she swept. Whatever was upstairs had gone quiet. The funeral that night. Open casket, Gran's face robbed of its usual animation. The body and clothes Nora had never seen Gran wear had been bad enough. At least the service had been short, but then the mourners all shuttled over to a local restaurant for the wake. Aunt Deborah had begun the toasts. Ding dong, am I right? Here's to mother, she said. Some people tutted and some chuckled, but Nora's mother glared. Aunt Deborah blinked back, the glass shaking a little in her extended hand. Then she raised her drink high, looked around the crowd, and downed it. It opened the floor for everyone to start sharing stories about Gran. Some praised her iron will, the time she got the better of that rude clerk, the neighbor with the awful dog who she forced to take obedience lessons. Some were less kind. She put poison in my bird feeders, a cranky neighbor insisted, which was patently ridiculous. Most people weren't bothering with the food on the buffet table in favor of trips to the bar. An hour later, Nora loosened her fingernails from her palm and excused herself, pretending she had a work message. She probably did. The software update was being released Friday, and management had been more anxious than usual. She'd care tomorrow. For now, Nora squeezed through clouds of boozy laughter, chairbacks pressing against her ribs and hands reaching for the long sleeves of her new black dress. She heard her mother call her name, but didn't make eye contact. The restaurant door opened onto a chilly, blessedly quiet darkness. Other than a car whooshing by on the cross street, Nora was able to inhale and exhale without other demands on her attention. If only she could go to Gran's and tell her all about tonight. Nora's throat closed, knowing it would never happen again. A soft cough came from her left. Nora turned, stomach sinking, to find her Aunt Deborah smoking on the curb. They stared at each other for a moment before Aunt Deborah waved a tentative hand to the patch of pavement at her side. Nora approached and her aunt scrutinized her from behind a cigarette. It's rough on you, I know, Aunt Deborah said. You loved her. She wasn't. Nora flapped an incoherent hand back at the restaurant, and her firm hold over her lips wobbled. But Aunt Deborah must have been grieving too. Nora exhaled, scraping up empathy from somewhere. I know you and Ma had your differences with Gran, and things weren't great when you were teenagers. Aunt Deborah laughed. Sweetie, I'm glad you have these happy memories, but dying doesn't change who she was. There was a lot more to her, a lot worse to her, than she showed you. She looked down the street, flicking ash into the gutter. She cried, your Gran, and asked forgiveness every once in a while. She felt awful about the broken arm or the toy, but she kept doing it. And then 5 minutes later, tears all gone, she'd tell us to dress up and pull at her mother's china set like she was making it up to us with cake and red rose. It wasn't an apology. She was celebrating. Aunt Deborah dropped the butt and ground it flat. It felt like Nora's heart was under her foot alongside the cigarette. Those fucking tea parties, Aunt Deborah muttered. Nora didn't believe it. She couldn't. If Gran was so bad, why are you even here? She flapped an arm and something small and dark dislodged from her sleeve. A feather. Her aunt gave her the side eye. You never get away from family. Not really. There's always some reason. Wedding, funeral, we all get pulled back. She noticed the feather drifting to earth near the curb, and her face stilled. Fucking tea parties, she said again. She gave Nora and the feather a wide berth as she went back into the restaurant. The next day, exhaustion hung on Nora like a shroud. She'd been right about the work messages and had been reviewing code until past 3 that morning. She loved her job. It had let her get her own place instead of living with Ma, but she couldn't keep up this pace. A week of living at Gran's, trying to sort the contents of the house, trying to juggle all her responsibilities. I'm sorry, but bereavement policy is 3 days and you've been out 5, her boss had messaged on Slack. It's fast fashion. We have to be available. And we need all hands on deck because the update release can't get pushed again. It wouldn't have been so bad except the phone rang promptly at 7. Her mother was an early riser. It took a moment before Nora's sluggish ears could distinguish between Ma's voice and the agitated fluttering overhead. God, the bird was still up there. Every time she turned around, there were more feathers on the floor. How did it keep getting out when she couldn't even get into the attic? Have you found the china yet? The realtor is going to list on Friday. The house has to be empty by then for the stagers, her mother announced. Ma, it's Wednesday. I've got a major project at work finishing Friday. Put them off, Nora, her mother said impatiently. The realtor isn't going to wait. She huffed. And good riddance. That unfeeling witch will never call me daughter in that house ever again. Her voice flattened in unflattering mimicry. I hope the buyers are childless, frankly. Are you trying to punish me for having a good relationship with Gran? The words burst out before Nora thought better of it. The staccato bark of her mother's laugh jabbed into Nora's ear. You only think you knew your sainted grandmother. Count yourself lucky I raised you. She hung up before Nora could answer. Nora dropped the phone on the bed beside her, face sinking into her palms. Well, she was awake now. She'd sort until the coffee kicked in, and then keep coding. She found more feathers in the hallway under the jammed pull-down opening to the attic and cursed. The broom and dustpan were somewhere in the kitchen, probably. Between feathers coming out of nowhere and salt sifting out of every drawer she opened, she had to keep moving them. Nora made some progress in the hall and linen closets. She boxed up the Corelle dishes and put them in her trunk, unable to let them go to some thrift store. She'd planned to empty Gran's room today, but then the coding environment went down twice, and her mother called again at noon about the china, and Nora almost couldn't hear her from the frantic noise overhead. Was it getting louder? Frustrated beyond measure, Nora stormed to the second floor to shoo whatever it was back out the damn window. She pulled on the strap for the attic stairs until her whole body dangled from it. You want out? Come out then. Whatever was up there rustled furiously as she yanked, the air around Nora alive with sound as though she were surrounded by flapping wings. She strained until little dark spots floated at the edge of her vision, floating like down around her. The stairs didn't budge. Finally, Nora let go of the handle. The air stilled. She felt her shoulders sag, all her nervous energy exhausted. Her brain felt like wet cotton, and it was hard not to take that closed door as a personal failure. Slack pinged as she considered the ceiling. Gran, Nora said, I'm not saying you did it, but I'm beginning to understand why someone would poison a bird feeder. But she said it softly, so as not to draw more attention to herself. On Thursday, Nora silenced her cell, hoping for a little peace and quiet. Unable to connect, Ma's messages increased in frequency and vitriol. Somehow the creature upstairs heard the phone's vibration as well as a ringtone, beating away at the floor as though trying to break through. Unease twisted in her stomach. It was definitely louder. Opening a new tab, she searched for a local pest control company. Neither of the two she found could come out before Monday. One suggested she first have a contractor deal with the door. It was afternoon before Nora could pack Gran's bedroom. It carried a weight beyond that of the heavy furniture, and the ache of it caused Nora to pause at the threshold. Still, she smiled at the soft blush walls, a shade Gran claimed was flattering to the complexion. Nora took a moment to really look around, having never been allowed in there growing up. A mirror and darkly varnished frame was the sole decoration. The quiet throbbed like a sore tooth. Turning away from her tiny, hollow-eyed reflection, Nora stripped the bed and folded the plain ivory comforter. Wiping her face, she picked up a box and moved to the mahogany bureau on the far wall. Something felt off. Nora hunched as she gripped the hairbrush on the top of the dresser, the ceiling looming lower than she'd thought at first. The walls pressed in on her like an ill-fitting second skin. Opening the dresser, Nora found the drawers coated in some pale, coarse grit. She licked a finger and tasted it. Salt here, too? She even had to shake out the clothes, leaving the floor slippery and white. The quiet clung to her, thick and damp like a hot breath on the back of her neck. After a week of flinching when her phone rang or the fluttering started, silence was somehow worse. Even though she'd planned to sort slowly, Nora found herself chucking everything into the donation box. A cloud passed over the sun as she picked up Gran's favorite purple cardigan, and the room darkened. Nora rubbed her eyes with the back of one hand, and the darkness seemed to multiply and fracture in the room. For a second, she stood within a color-swapped snow globe. Feathers rained down from the ceiling, dark drifts of them piled in the corners. Nora blinked hard, hand fisting around the wool and her heart starting to race. The feathers vanished. This couldn't just be lack of sleep, could it? On impulse, she put her hands into the sleeves of the cardigan and pulled it on. The warmth of the wool seemed to push back the oppressive heaviness. The sleeves pulled taut, squeezing her arm the way Gran used to, her soap smell rising out of the fabric. Nora tucked her hands into the pockets, finding more salt. The bedroom wall sulkily drew back, the room brightening slightly. The air still thrummed around her, and Nora glared back, frightened and furious. For the first time, she understood her mother's deep antipathy for this place. This creepy, staring room was going to be the last memory she'd have of a house and a woman who had been her escape for so long. In that moment, Nora hated it down to her bones. How had Gran managed to sleep in here and stay sane? Just before lunch Friday, the update remained dead in the water. Nora was still wearing the cardigan, determined to keep Gran, the best of Gran, with her. We need a break, Nora messaged the group. Go get lunch. Try and come at this from another angle. We don't need a break. We need a final push, her boss replied. We have to get this working today. Take 15 minutes and grab something to eat, but management's paying attention to this one. Come on, another coworker responded. Another day can't matter that much. They're talking about trimming head count. We need this done. Nora stopped breathing. If she lost this job, she'd have to move back in with Ma. I'm going to hit the micro kitchen, someone messaged after a moment. Exhaling, Nora saved her changes to the development environment and picked a path through donation boxes. She'd take out some of the trash, get back to work. Picking up her cell and a bag of worn-out things, Nora headed outside, listening to the latest voicemail. I've been thinking about what you said at the wake, her aunt started. Maybe you were right. Growing up, Mother was... But maybe her mother was hard on her, the way she was hard on us. Sometimes your Gran would say things, and as a kid I didn't understand, but now, that woman sounded like a monster. Warmth pricked at the corner of Nora's eyes. Maybe there was a silver lining to all this. Maybe they'd get closer as a family. And your Gran did get a lot better after you were born. I think she quit the booze. Started eating every salty snack she could get her hands on, probably as a substitute. There was a pause. Your ma's been calling a lot, ranting like Mother used to. Her aunt exhaled hard, a burst of static traveling across the miles of empty air and cell connection. I learned when to get out. You should too. Take it from experience. The message ended. Nora pulled the cardigan tighter around her, hope dissipating. Coming around the house, Nora saw Mr. Bennett shuffling back from the mailbox at the end of his driveway, broom in hand. He paused, his disapproving gaze flicking between her face and the trash bag. She nodded, hoping it would be the extent of their interaction. When Nora turned back from the metal bin, he'd come toward her, fumbling out a folded handkerchief. Here, he grunted. She took the square of cloth, staring at the mended corner. He gestured at her head, but looked over her shoulder. You must really miss your grandma. Nora felt her shoulders start to collapse in and took a deep breath, hiding her face for a moment in the soft cotton. Exhaling carefully, she wiped her eyes and handed the fabric square back to him. I hadn't expected this to be so hard. Your grandma was a good woman, he said. A bit difficult, but a good woman. Nora hiccuped a laugh, words tumbling after. I miss her so much. I feel like I'm packing her away into all these boxes, and all my mother can talk about is this china set that I've never seen. Gran had white plates with leaves on them, and Ma won't stop demanding I find it, and I'm beginning to think Gran got rid of it, and there is salt in everything. She dug her fingers into her pockets to show him the white grains. Behind him, Nora's mother pulled up to the curb like an oncoming storm. She slammed the door and stalked toward them. You never cease to disappoint. I told you the realtor was listing today, and you're dawdling instead of locating the china. She sniffed. Did someone actually tell you you look good in that color? Mr. Bennet eyed her mother, disdain creeping across his face. I'm not surprised Nora couldn't find it. Her grandma had me haul it into the attic for her, a decade or more ago. It wasn't that heavy, but she insisted on giving me coffee and chips for my help. He puffed up, pulling his shoulders back. Her mother's lips curled back from her teeth. Preposterous, she said. Mother couldn't stand salt. She wouldn't have it in the house. The attic? Nora asked. She hadn't closed the box yet, and I asked about giving the set to her daughters. He flushed, and Nora wondered what it was that Gran had said in reply. You didn't think to check? Jesus, Nora, do I have to do everything? Her mother turned on one heel toward the house. Nora's face stiffened with shame and frustration. The stair door is stuck, she called, but words had never stopped her mother before and didn't now. Nora sighed, turning back. I'm sorry, Mr. Bennet. Thank you for listening, and for the handkerchief. Wait, Mr. Bennet called, and Nora paused. She'd packed the china and salt, he said, and she made me turn my pockets out before I left the house. Your grandma's business was her own, but precautions like that are taken for a reason. Leave the attic alone. Confused, Nora nodded and hurried back inside Gran's house. A flurry of Slack chimes drew her to her laptop. Priority 1 outage. The credit card processing part of the site is down. Drop everything. Chest in a vise, Nora realized it must have been her changes that broke something. Damn it! She leaned over to respond when her mother's voice lashed down the stairs. These boxes should be gone and the house empty. What the hell have you been doing? Nora sucked in a shaky breath, checking in relief to see she'd committed her changes to the development environment as she'd meant to. It didn't fix the problem with the site, but at least meant she hadn't caused it. She sighed, typing, Be right back. My mom just showed up on the doorstep. Let me get rid of her, before following Ma's heavy footfalls. She would deal with her mother and then figure out what had gone wrong with work. I think it's locked, Nora called as her mother reached up. And something's been going nuts up there all week. Though, oddly, there wasn't a sound now. The smothering air almost vibrated with quiet. The stairs smoothly lowered, with a shower of white granules to her mother's waiting hand. Nora wanted to scream, astonishment and seething resentment mingling behind her clenched teeth. She crossed her arms, struggling for poise. She'd been trying to open that for days. Ma recoiled, shaking out her hair and brushing off her shoulders, checking to ensure she was immaculate before looking up again. I'm not surprised, she said crisply, never looking at Nora. Stepping over the ring of salt, she ascended. Nora closed her eyes instead of responding. Above, she heard her mother's irritated huff as she wrestled a cardboard box open. The air seemed to carry a static charge. Unease replacing her anger, Nora started forward, and the sleeves of the cardigan tightened, almost pulling her away from the base of the stairs. She tried again, and the pull increased. Why was her heart pounding? I learned when to get out, she abruptly remembered Aunt Deborah saying. Another voice emerged from the attic. Took you long enough, Gran said sharply. Except it wasn't Gran. This other voice had been stripped of emotion, the grain of it standing rough against Nora's ear. She flinched, retreating farther. The cardigan sleeves felt strangling tight, yanking toward the front door, toward her car. A heavy step came from above. A shadow fell over the white circle. A dark-eyed creature wearing Ma's face gazed down, holding the fragile curve of a teacup in one hand. Wings flared up behind it like a photonegative nimbus, obsidian feathers eclipsing the rest of the attic. Put the kettle on, great-granddaughter, it said, the flat syllables lacking the malice her mother's voice had always carried. Then come up and see your inheritance.
Laura wasn't planning on having children, was she? I don't want Nora to have children. I know it's not nice, but it's just,
Some things do carry down through generations until you just say stop
yeah.
and get rid of the tea set.
Yeah, I do have to wonder if you could just get rid of the tea set. Okay, that was creepy on so many levels. Really liked that. So, those of you who've been here before will know, but this is new to some of you. It's our way at Story Hour to just take a moment between the readers to soak in the last of the first story, contain it in the ring of salt that our bodies make, and ready ourselves for a new one. I like to do this with breath. Everyone, that was Rachel Unger, and she was reading a story called Dislocation, I believe.
Distortion.
Distortion. Distortion makes more sense. Dislocation kind of could work too. And our next reader tonight is Lauren Parker. Lauren Parker is a fourth-generation female breadwinner descended from male charlatans, and thus has grown up to be a very educated liar. She is a writer, zine maker, and visual artist, and has written for The Toast, R.I.P. The Toast, Strange Horizons, The Racket, Belt Magazine, Catapult, and Autostraddle. She's the author of the poetry collection We Are Now the Thing in the Woods, Road Trip in Verse Dark Way Down, and Spells for Success. She has a newsletter. Do you want to do some witchcraft? Lauren Parker, welcome to Story Hour.
Thank you all for having me. I'm very honored to be here. Uh, this did not get picked to be published by Taco Bell Quarterly, although it got close. And the only content warning is that there's police in it.
All right.
The signs for the prison started to appear in the chewed-up yards of Vernon County in March, when the bridge was still frozen. They poked out of the Illinois snowbanks like tombstones. Dedicated staff, positive culture, successful future, Vernon County Prison. I don't like any of this prison stuff, Bridget said when I got in after school. In wintertime, she let me park my bike in the back office. What don't you like about it? My coat was damp from the air and the snow and the gall-damn lake effect, as my dad would say. Not that he's around much, third shift. I stored my bike and washed my hands in the sink. This is one of the oldest Taco Bells in the country, the fourth one on this side of the Mississippi. We're the only one for miles. Bridget told me that. She'd been the night manager here since it opened before I was even born. You're dripping all over the place, Madison, Rod said from the booth in the center of the floor. Give it here. He pointed to my jacket. Rod was a mechanic into classic cars. He got out the restored Camaro in the summers when the parking lot turned into a roller rink. Rod smelled like the Baja Blast that Bridget sold but wouldn't let me drink. There's gin in them, sure. Corporate doesn't know about that. But there's something else, too. Rod called it Bridget's love potion. I didn't know if she did love potions, but Rod sure was in love with her. Prisons have done enough for places like this. Bridget said as I got myself a Pepsi from the fountain and opened one of the fire sauces and started to suck on it. She cut up the canned jalapenos for the special queso, another thing corporate doesn't know about. She opened the can from the discount grocery, pulled the slimy green rings out, and chopped them with the knives she packed up and took home with her every night. One of them's black and iron. I still remember what happened the last time they tried this in the 80s. Jobs, Rod croaked, belching a little Amsterdam and ground beef scented burp that I could smell from the counter. We need the jobs, sweet Bridget. Rod is the only person that calls her sweet Bridget. He once tried to call her sweetheart and his engine blew up on 55 right as he hit 70 miles per hour. Nearly died. He never called her sweetheart again. Bridget looked at me and cocked an eyebrow. I shrugged. Rod's not my problem. I'm not even employed here. I just don't talk about what I see and make the deliveries. She stirred the black beans counterclockwise, widdershins, she sometimes called it when she forgot that I was there. You all think the only way to solve anything is to create jobs, but we don't want those kinds of jobs, she said. You just don't get it, he said, taking a sip of his Baja Blast and heading towards the door. I need you to deliver some tacos to the Keeves over on Pine, Bridget said, handing me a bag. I knew the Keeves. They were a cursed family, everyone said so. I pulled my hat over my ears and got my coat from the heater. I know it's a haul. What's their bill? No bill. Kid sick. The alert for the drive-through buzzed and Bridget talked into the headset. Welcome to Taco Bell. What can I get you? So they are the special tacos, I thought. I'd been running deliveries for Bridget for about 3 years, and it felt like my whole life. Enough nights strung together and enough seasons. Sometimes it's Super Bowl weekend, and I had to loop the straps of the big enforced bags around the handle of my bicycles, one on each side to keep even. I tried wrapping my tires in chains like snow tires, but it didn't work. Sometimes the orders had a bean and cheese burrito on top with "For Madison" written on it, so I could have dinner while I delivered. Sometimes there wasn't just tacos or burritos or crunch wraps at all. Sometimes it was jars of Vicks Vapor Rub and NyQuil. Once, tucked into some of the soft tacos, I saw a blank pill bottle, and when I opened it, the bottle was stuffed with pills and hot sauce packets, so the whole thing didn't rattle. I delivered it to one of the houses tucked in behind the shells of the abandoned subdivision, left it on the porch, heard the dog howl from the background. I didn't ask about the bottle. I didn't ask about any of it. I just took the tenner, the bean burrito. Bridget had an order of burritos laid out in front of her in a line, guts open like the sliced belly of a fish. Wait, before you go. Draw that thing with the cheese. You're good at it. That Smith kid recovered. Tate Smith was the first kid I ever healed. Walking pneumonia. He wasn't responding to antibiotics, and you could die from that. I read about it online. I'd drawn what Bridget had told me to with the queso and the tortilla. He'd made a full recovery. Worst part? Tate Smith was a shithead. Don't matter if they're shitheads, Bridget had said. We're going to help. She pointed to the symbol drawn on a piece of printer paper in black marker. It was tacked up to the bulletin board next to several others. The labels on the top read sick, need work, overdose. There had been others, they rotated in the years, but the last couple had been consistent, labeling our three biggest problems. They were yellowing from the kitchen in time. Bridget painted the overdose symbol more and more these days. The closest emergency room was nicknamed the morgue, where you got the worst care, but you got the most drugs. A couple kids' dads at school had gone in for back trouble and come out with quick cures and turned into quick deaths. I walked my bike most of the way in the snow, too thick and dark to ride through, and saw the cop lights parked at one of the speed traps that truckers generally got busted at. None of the cops lived around here. They all lived 4 towns over where the houses were nicer, not even the same county. What are you doing out this late? The cop rolled down his window and barked at me, and I jumped. It's only 5:30, I said. It was dark as hell, though. It was cold, and I was nervous, and I didn't want him to search me. I should have checked the bag first. The cop looked disappointed at finding out the time and said, You get that heap off the road, indicating my bicycle. I'm trying to, I thought, but said, Will do, officer. I was starting to understand why Bridget didn't want the prison here. When I got back, Bridget had turned down the lights a little. Cops are out, I said, peeling off my soaked mittens and scarf and coat. It's freezing. Bridget nodded. No more deliveries tonight. I have dinner for you over there. She pointed towards the booth out of the view of the windows. I inhaled my usual order, bean and cheese burrito with potatoes. And she counted out $30 for me. When are you going to let me work here, Bridget? I asked, my mouth full. I need you to run the orders. Plus, you're not old enough. Bridget opened the drive-through window and a crow landed on a perch. She handed it a taco chip. We won't get any more people here tonight. I swallowed my burrito and the refried beans burned on the way down. I had eaten dinner here 4 nights a week since I started running deliveries, and sometimes I swore I could hear what Bridget was thinking, or see it in dim images, a gun, a knife, a pile of pills, a grave. Where was that cop you saw? Four-way stop on Maple and Lake where that kid got hit by the Coca-Cola truck. Bridget shook her head. Never would have had that problem with a Pepsi. You tell your folks I said hello. The 4 months between the last snowfall and the special election were tense. Nights were loud in this part of Illinois. Crickets, cicadas. Some years, katydids. It's a cacophony in the summer of Burning County, population 15,867. I learned that word because it was in a book and I liked it. And I learned how many of us there were from the Wikipedia article on Burning County. There wasn't much else there. Every advertisement from local access to cable to radio was about the prison. I rode my bike past a lot of signs and a lot of cops. Assembly person Jessica Murphy was on every bench and voiceover ad highlighting the rising crime rate and low employment. I spent a lot more time in the Taco Bell kitchen as Bridget would grind her teeth whenever Murphy's voice came on local radio. Rising crime rates and low employment have allowed Burning County to become a joke. And I believe in the people here, and that's why I'm encouraging you to pass Measure 12, which would bring a prison. Be a burning crime fighter. Turn it off, she said. The lights flickered when she was mad, but once I noticed. But only I noticed because the days were so long. I kept trying to get her to give up on the radio and learn about iTunes, but she brushed me off. No one drove through this drive-through in the summer. They walked up and Bridget handed them crunch wraps or spiked Taha blasts or other things that I'm not allowed to see but peek anyway. Lots of condoms and Plan B and vials of stuff that's unmarked. Lots of hot sauce packages with messages like hot stuff and I want. Bridget never used the sauce outside of the packet. She said the plastic made the flavor. Being around Bridget was sometimes like sucking on a hot sauce packet, cayenne and chili burning a hole in my mouth. I couldn't imagine what it was like to drink her love potion. Rod parked and his radio cut to more prison promo. The men spent the nights in the parking lot in lawn chairs playing poker. A prison will stabilize our local economy. Those out of work, they'll have it. There will be a promotion path and higher level positions for people with degrees to encourage higher education. No more brain drain. It's not seasonal, no layoff risks. We want Little League for our kids, a coffee shop, an ice cream soda shop, thriving schools. The lights cut out completely. And Bridget said into the darkened kitchen, Madison, 879 Euclid. Don't get caught. She handed me a bag that rattled, and I mapped the route in my head. Every intersection was crawling with cops except the one that the Taco Bell was on. If they drove here, the turkey vultures started to circle their cars and blocked the view. I'd been formally warned for loitering 3 times in as many weeks, trespassing twice. At some point, they'd figure out how to arrest me, or that they should. I pushed my bike through the woods. There's no path but one I cut with my tires. When headlights shone through the trees, I ducked down and pulled my hood over my head. It was 85 degrees at night, and somehow everything had gone silent. I left the bag on the sunken porch out of sight and rang the bell. I'd stashed my bike in the bushes and started my way back, covered in leaves, and still there was no sound. No bugs, no critters, nothing. My gram was from Appalachia. She had warned me about nights like this. I used to be able to just ride in the streets back, but it would tip the cops off when I was making deliveries. I made it all the way past the abandoned condo development when one of the unmarked cars started to follow me. Where are you headed? It was the same cop every time. The others didn't bother to remember me. They'd hassle, but not remember. But this one I saw on almost every delivery. No matter what charm I carried in my pocket or oil I stamped on my pulse points. He had a sunglasses tan line on his bald head, no matter what time of year it was, and had a Florida palm tree air freshener dangling from the rear view. Home, I said, not looking at him. Where do you live? I didn't say anything. I just kept walking my bike. Want a ride? Happy to drop you off. Tonight was the night he had figured out he should arrest me. I could feel it in the fillings in my teeth. Turkey vultures started circling overhead. My heart beat faster and I hopped on my bike and started pedaling, jumping off the road and through the yards of several houses. I could hear the cop flip the lights and siren on, and I panicked. I didn't know what else to do, so I rode to the Taco Bell and banged on the back door for Bridget, my sweaty hands leaving prints on the glass. If they didn't take me, I'd have to clean that later. He's coming. I'm sorry. The kitchen was only lit from the pilot lights from the grill and the sign outside that said Live Moss. It was darker than even outside. The officer pulled into the empty parking lot, the turkey vultures still circling and a couple landed on the roof. Get inside, Bridget said icily. Just checking in, seeing if everything is all right, he said, pushing past Bridget when she opened the door. I don't know what happened after that. My bike and I were hiding in the office with the light off and the door shut. I could hear chopping and the sizzle of the ground beef. I could hear the sound of the fountain filling a cup, and I could hear a heavy thud that shook the door jamb. Madison, I need you, Bridget said, her footsteps as loud as my pulse. Bridget lit a couple candles and put them next to us on the cutting line. I'll cut the meat. You cut the rest. The rest was some vegetables, crushed powder, and something dark and granular in a jar fished out of Bridget's purse. Bridget, when are you going to let me work here? My voice shook. The live moss glow cast Bridget's face in violet light. Tonight, she said, and tossed me her iron knife. Thank you.
I have to say, I really love picturing the meeting where the Taco Bell committee is discussing this story.
Can you imagine the corporate report?
Oh my God. Oh my gosh. You know that some people were like, and someone's like, well, we're gonna need to check with the lawyers on, yeah, no
Technically, I think
way.
there's a fair amount of like franchise power, but more so in 2009 than there probably is now.
So did you end up publishing that somewhere or?
No, it remains homeless.
Oh, so this is one of the only ways anyone can ever find
It's
it.
true. This is it.
Broken by your own voice. That's quite an honor. Thank you very
Of
much.
course. Thank you for having me.
Delighted. Please come back anytime, both of you. Goodness. I'm trying to think of the thread that runs through these two stories because there's almost always something. But all I'm seeing is feathers. I guess both of them did contain a lot of salt, although the second one didn't say so. Just because it was Taco Bell, just because it was fast food, they
Yeah, I
wouldn't have
mean, the
put
sodium's
salt.
real.
Yeah. Ah, lovely though. And I love turkey vultures. They're so beautiful. So they're beautiful on the wing, and on the ground, they're just these hunched, grumpy looking, kind of confused looking things. Lovely though. They really know how to soar. Well, this has been a wonderful story hour. Thank you so much for participating in our spooky month and making it my favorite time here. Next week, I will be back, and our readers will be ML Krishnan and Gemma Files. I do recommend checking storyhour2020.com the day of the reading for any announcements, any changes. Hardly ever happens. Storyhour2020.com is also the place to check out the calendar, see what's happening the rest of Spooky Month and a little bit beyond. And, if you're unable to watch a story hour you want to see, or you just want to watch one a few more times, maybe this one, there's a recordings page that has links to the story hours on YouTube. We're still migrating a few of them over from Facebook, but the recent ones are all there on YouTube now. And they're all there on YouTube, actually. They're just not all linked at the story from the story hour page yet. So go have a look. Rachel Unger, Lauren Parker, thank you so much for your wonderful stories tonight. This has really feels trite to say magical, but it has felt sort of electric in a special kind of way. And thank you to my co-host, Daniel Marcus, who will be back next week. And thank you, all of you who are joining us here today in the Zoom, all of you joining us at some point in the future on YouTube. As long as we all enjoy these stories, we really are together in the same story hour. Good night.